Hey, what's up, mafias? Welcome back to the commute. And in this podcast, we are talking with Shreyas Patil. He has been working as an Android engineer in Dilveroo. Previously, he has worked in Paytm Scanner, which means he has managed performance. That will be super interesting to look into. He has previously made the Paytm Scanner 5 times better. We have actually explored this topic in this podcast. We are not only talking about Android, but rather personal finances as well. You'll be taking a look into what he is investing right now. And I hope you guys really enjoy it. And if you do, like, share, and subscribe. For now, let's get started. I usually start off this podcast by asking this one simple question is how do you define stable life for yourselves? What do you think?
Yeah, for me, the stable life is that I get a good work and I get a good time with family as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be a stable life for me.
A much more simple definition. But
Yeah.
I try to ask this question from a lot of different people because this gives me a certain perspective into their ideology of how they're thinking about their careers. Either they want to go into a much more freedom route, like go into an entrepreneurship or start their own app somewhere down the line. Then they would not value stability over freedom, and as compared to someone who is an employee who would value stability over freedom. So that's why I try to ask this particular question. Now, one more thing that I want to go on here is that, like, if you take an example of, like, you get to do what you like, right? What about someone who actually started off has no idea about, like, I don't understand that I haven't explored enough to understand that I like Android or maybe I like iOS. I don't understand. I don't have that much experience under my belt. What would you suggest to someone like that?
Okay. So this is something which I have tried in my early career. So I can easily suggest that. So what I would suggest is that in the start of career, let's say you don't know whether you like front end development, back end development, or any kind of development. I would say explore each and every aspect of this thing. So basically, before starting working as an Android developer, I myself work in a startup, and in the startup, I used to do everything. I used to do web development, front end, little bit of React. I also developed backends in Kotlin, JVM stack, and then even in Python.
Mm-hmm.
Like except AIML stuff, I explored kind of majority of backend, front end, cloud, etc. And then I came to know that okay, mobile development is something I like most. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like web, yeah, backend, etc. But when I develop apps in Android, I enjoy it personally, and I like it. Like I just don't realize how my time goes while solving problems for Android mobile apps. And this is when I realized that Android is the way to go for the future. Like we can be versatile in just like we should know each and every stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or not necessary, but at least beginner or intermediate phase. But Android is something that I felt I should be doing expertise in it. And I would recommend same to all people that if you're not sure that like you like XYZ take or not, I would say try everything and then you will definitely know that with what you like. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a simple thing like which everyone can follow.
Yeah, I understand. I relate to it 100%. When I started off in my early career as well, I tried to delve into game development because I enjoyed games as such,
Nice.
and I thought that game development was something interesting. I came across that you can also release games in Android. Then I got started in Android as well. So that's what I did eventually, and I think so. Everyone who finds interest in niches like mobile development do. So that's what my thinking.
Yes.
Um, Other than that, what's your story? Like, how do you get start? How do you got started into this particular niche of mobile development, and like from the college to wherever you are right now? What's your story?
Yeah, so this happened after 10th. So after my SSC examination, I got admitted in diploma.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't did this 11th and 12th thing. So I directly started doing diploma in IT.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing that, like if you're aware that diploma is like kind of mini engineering stuff only.
Yeah, yeah.
We used to learn programming languages and all, and while learning C programming language in the second semester, like it's 11 plus, sorry, 10 plus one thing.
Mhm.
I got interested, and it was time of 2016 actually, and at that time, mobile Android were widely used by everyone. Like it was an era where Android mobiles were getting picked up by many people, and
Mhm.
I got a thought that I should be able to build applications that, just like at the time WhatsApp and other games were very famous,
Mhm.
and I thought I should be able to develop some applications and publish them on Play Store so that um, I should be able to build products. And this is when I started learning Android myself, because in the syllabus there was no Android. So
Mhm.
when C programming was being taught to us, I started learning Android in parallel. So I used to literally remember the syntax of Java. So, for example, obviously my Java concepts were not so clear at that time,
Mhm.
because I was learning C side by side. So I literally used to remember, okay, if we have to show the toast, okay, this is the method, like show toast dot make text, three
Yeah, yeah.
parameters and dot show. If you have to uh, go to another screen, this is on the click of button, let's say. So okay, button dot set on click listener,
Mm.
there will be a overridden method on view on click, and you have to start activity with the intent parameter and dot. So I literally
Mm.
used to remember this thing, and this is how I built my first application, which is a basic C programming learning application. So as I said, I was learning C.
Mm.
uh, I just created a static C programming learning app. It took around 1.5 months to build such static app, because at the
Mm.
time I do not even have a good machine with me. It was 2 GB or 4 GB with i3.
Mhm.
So the app was made, and I made it public, and actually got a good response. That so far the application has 8 lakh installs.
Mm. That's
Sorry,
nice.
7.5 lakh installs, not 8 lakhs.
Mm.
And this was my first application. It also started like a passive earning for me through ads,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so this basically boosted my confidence that I should do something new. And onwards that I started building some more dynamic apps as well, like for students. Like say I build application for my college as a notice board.
Mhm.
Then my education board, that kind of alert system kind of stuff. So for example, whenever results are announced, you will get it in a single app, whether a timetable is available, like all college board related notifications in one application. uh,
Mhm.
did it with Firebase, and also I learned everything very slowly initially. So till the time of 2017, I kind of learned everything. Like I learned Java as well and all. But yeah, my initial journey was like I used to remember everything. Like if you have to achieve this, you have to do that. And
Mhm.
story for learning this is like I never did any course for learning this. So the best thing which I followed for learning Android is that always pick a project and learn concept while implementing the features for that project, so that
Mm.
whenever you whenever you come across any problem, you find the solution for it, and whenever you find solution for it, you'll always remember it forever in life. And
Mhm.
because this is the base learning. Otherwise, what happens in courses or whatnot stuff, it's that you just see videos, and instructor shows you how to do that, and later you forgot what you have to do.
Mhm.
This project driven learning takes time. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes
Mhm.
it may also depress you if you're
Mhm.
not able to solve problems. But yeah, at the end outcome is nice, and at the end you end up developing a product which can be used by anyone. So
Mhm.
um, I used to learn concepts, I used to build products, and at the end that products used to get published on Play Store and used by people. So
Mhm.
that was a good learning, and this is how I started doing it. Then after diploma, I went to Pune for my engineering.
Mhm.
There as well, I continued my Android development and all stuff.
Mhm.
I participated in several Smart India hackathons,
Mhm.
2017, 2018. Like we build Android applications for the Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Ayush in that.
Mhm.
So that was also a good experience of developing Android app with a team,
Mhm.
and overall end-to-end system with a team.
Mhm.
I did education, like college projects as well in the Android. even
Mhm.
though it was not in our syllabus.
Mhm.
And then by 2019, I started contributing to the community with open source or
Mhm.
blogs.
Mhm.
So in 2019, I was building an application for Pune University Board,
Mhm.
and for that, for example, uh, till the time I had never used GitHub,
Mhm.
and while implementing features for that application, there was a need for pagination in that application,
Mhm.
and I was using Firebase as a database. And I saw
Mhm.
that there was a library by Firebase, uh,
Mhm.
a Firebase UI SDK
Mhm.
for Android, and that SDK provides pagination for Firestore database, but there was no pagination API for Firebase database, real-time database, the old
Mhm.
database of Firebase.
Yeah, yeah.
So okay, and I was using Firebase real-time database for specific use case, and I do not wanted to use real Firestore database because of some planning, pricing issues and all.
Mhm.
So okay, I saw potential that okay, this pagination API is not available, but maybe then at the same time I came to know about GitHub that okay, this library is open source and I can contribute API to it.
Mhm.
So what I did is I first developed my application with my custom pagination API,
Mhm.
and once it was successful, I actually raised an issue in Firebase UI SDK. I created my GitHub account at around that time,
Mhm.
and I say, okay, I created a good issue with proper description and all, and proposed that can we have a pagination API for a real time database, and I have this prototype and all,
Mhm.
and they replied that sounds good, and you can raise a pull request with against XYZ branch. They mentioned it,
Mhm.
and I took a day or two, and I created a pull request against Firebase SDK,
Mhm.
and that was my first open source contribution. My first commit was for Firebase database. So I actually learned GitHub just because I have to contribute to it. So this
Mhm.
is how I started learning GitHub, started all pull requesting and best practices of Git. It
Mhm.
took around a week or 2 weeks because that review went so long. I learned a lot from that review because there were literally so much detailed PR reviews. Like
Mhm.
they literally corrected me often. They taught me best practices like how I should be writing this XYZ class or XYZ implementation. And
Mhm.
finally, after 2 weeks, that PR got merged, and that was my first PR against Google branch. And
Mhm.
like I was quite happy, and I started doing it often. And initially, after this, there was no blog I have wrote so far. And what I did is like, okay, I thought I should start blogging as well. And the first blog I wrote is about this Firebase SDK thing. Is like how can you use Firebase database pagination with this library, which I
Mhm.
contributed.
Mhm.
So initially, if you see my blogs were very basic level, like whatever I used to do open source, I just used to write steps and implementation stuff,
Mhm.
explanation of implementation in that blog.
Mhm.
And I published it. My first 3 4 blogs were around that, and further I created more Android libraries around material dialogues and UPI payment related stuff. I
Mhm.
made it open source and created blogs on the same.
Mhm.
So this is how I started open source stuff and blogging stuff. And
Mhm.
in blogging, I further then I learned a lot in the blogging journey. That
Mhm.
like I used to get a lot of comments and DMs that your blogs are helping and helping to solve some things. Your language is so simple because at that time my English was even not that much good,
Mhm.
and I used to prefer writing in simple English. I still write in simple English,
Mhm.
and such feedback was actually giving me a kind of confidence that okay, I'm doing really good things and I should be doing that. Otherwise,
Mhm.
a lot of things happen around.
Mhm.
So I continued that, and eventually I started writing opinionated blogs and
Mhm.
some blogs around best practices. How can you improve things and all? So I basically shifted
Mhm.
from that tutorial blogs to kind of some advanced level blogs,
Mhm.
and it further improved my stuff. And overall, by the time I was in third year of engineering,
Mhm.
and COVID started in 2020.
Mhm. Mhm.
2020, yeah, correct. And it was a golden period, a golden opportunity for me because then I got freed from college and I can spend my 100% of the time in these things now.
Mhm.
So I uh, like I took advantage of this time, and I then started contributing more to the open source.
Mhm.
I contributed to Firebase around 6, 7 times around that time,
Mhm.
and then I also created some of my libraries. Let's
Mhm.
say I created some compose specific libraries. I created some sample applications,
Mhm.
sample like Foodium, and also Foodium was a simple GitHub repository for
Mhm.
simple Android application with proper best practice implementation using Android X libraries and all view model, etc. Clean architecture.
Mhm.
So that application got viral in very short time. That even within a day, it reached 1,000 plus stars on the GitHub,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it got me an opportunity to land my first internship at that
Mhm.
startup which I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
And at the while I was in third year of college, I started doing that internship where I did
Mhm.
literally everything apart from Android.
Mhm.
And meantime, in 2021, I also started because it was a COVID time. So I started taking webinars as well. I used to
Mhm.
like speak in different colleges around Android, Compose, etc.
Mhm.
So I started public speaking as well, and this is how I basically got into this public speaking and started delivering content from beginner to advanced level stuff. And
Mhm.
that time, like my contributions were recognized, and I got opportunity to become a Google developer expert. So
Mhm.
just appeared for it and did it, and this is how I at that time I became youngest Google developer expert for Android in India.
Mhm.
And by that time I was also reached out by Paytm for Android developer role. So just
Mhm.
applied for it and did it, and then I properly started contributing to my workspace as an Android developer. Otherwise,
Mhm.
at my previous startup I was contributing to everything.
Mhm.
And at Paytm I started contributing to products, and then later on I started contributing to the core engineering of the
Mhm.
application.
Mhm.
In time I was continuing with this contribution stuff. I was quite active speaker, I was quite active blogger, and it was still a lockdown time, and I was doing good at work as well. So
Mhm.
this is how Android journey so far.
It's a super inspiring journey for me as well because I'm maybe the 10% of whatever you did because uh, I started off learning Android in my last year because I do not belong to computer science background. I come from electrical and electronics, and I came across Android just because I said that I was messing around with game development as such. And if I look at back at my particular journey, I would definitely try to go back and change some things like you did, like go into smart hackathons, try to build as much products, and also be patient with my action because I've seen that I'm kind of impatient with my own actions when I try to build things very quickly, and that results in haphazard code, and that is not correct. um, but yeah, I learned it afterwards that this is not the correct way to do such things. But yeah, super inspiring journey. And yeah, I just looked across your profile as well when you were contributing to Paytm. I guess you made the app scanner 5x faster. I haven't read that thing as such, but yeah, can you tell me about how did you make and how do you think of how did you come across this particular problem and how did you solve it? What was your thinking behind it?
Yeah, sure. So in Paytm, later I was transferred to the core engineering team. So core engineering team is basically a platform team you might have heard. So platform team
Mhm.
is basically all about central engineering management, central engineering stuff.
Mhm.
So I was not doing UI stuff. I was mostly contributing to the like performance, architecture, security, all very
Mhm.
core platform related stuff in the Paytm.
Mhm.
And when I started doing it, I came across this project scanner that like from my manager, like, okay,
Mhm.
this scanner experience is very bad among the competitors. Like GPay was doing well, PhonePe was doing well, and all major GPay and PhonePe were our competitors with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
numbers, because Paytm is still number three. Top one is GPay, PhonePe, and then Paytm.
Mhm.
And Paytm scanner was not that much great, and even I was the one who gave them feedback that the scanner is not doing well so well, because when I was in engineering, when I used to use Paytm in my
Mhm.
phone having the low end device, obviously Paytm was taking so much time to even turn on and do the
Mhm.
stuff. So there were a lot of engineering issues in that application, and I'm fortunate that I got a chance to work on that project. So we started working on it, and obviously this video which you are seeing, it didn't happen in just a single thing. It actually took 1.5 years for us to fix, because we fixed things with small improvements and changes. So it was not even a single push fix. So we started doing fix by analyzing the issues first. So for example, there were in Android, the main thread is very delicate thing. Like you should
Yeah.
not upload so much operations on the main thread. So I did analysis of overall application, like what's happening in the application, what's heavy, tracing, perfecto tracing, you might have heard, sys tracing, and documented all the learnings, that what are the bottlenecks of the application, what should be the best way to fix these applications, like what should we offload to the background thread. And even sometimes you might have seen that even if you offload everything to the background thread, it still hampers the UI, because at the end it is a processor, and if you offload everything to the background thread, then background thread like CPU schedules that background stuff, and then it gives you less time to UI. So ultimately your UI experience is also hampered whenever you offload everything to the UI, because context switching time is there and all. So did everything, analysis of everything, like how we should fix things step by step. So for example, first of all, we fix things which are directly fixable on that screen, on that main thread related stuff. Then then we released it. Then we analyzed that there were some things which are not written inside of that screen, or related to that screen, but coming from some other models. Let's say Paytm is made from multiple models. Obviously, it's a very big fatty application. Multiple modules contribute to it. So we also analyze that what are the out of screen factors for that screen, which can affect the performance of the scanning. Because obviously for every UPI application, the scanning is the heart of every UPI application, because that's the main business of UPI, right? Like you scan and pay.
I agree.
So we prioritize that this screen should be taking as much as resources rather than other stuff. So we deprioritized other stuff which were happening while this screen was going on, and all stuff. So we did optimizations like that. Then we came to know that, okay, whatever best practices you do, but you still cannot beat the low end device configurations. Let's say if there is a device with 2 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM, and quad core or dual core. So whatever best practices you follow, you will always see slowness in such devices, because obviously resource constraints.
Agree.
So then we started analyzing, okay, in the runtime, if the device is low end, then do not even do this stuff, do not even show animations, because obviously this device, even if we show animations, it will stuck. So why to show animations? So we did such decisions. We took such decisions, obviously with the help of product managers. We convinced them, if we do this, obviously it will be helpful for the users. So these were some examples. So we did some device level optimizations. So for example, if low end device is there, we should not do this, or we should not even show this on screen. And like it took so these things happen, and at the end, when we analyzed that video you are seeing, and we saw it actually improved 5x performance over all range of devices, not only high end. It also impacted low end devices, it also impacted average end devices, and high end as well. So at the end, on the analytics dashboard, we also saw that QR improvement, user scanning rate also improved because of that, because there were a lot of ANRs as well on that screen which were coming, and after these changes there were literally zero ANRs on that screen. And this is about best practices, but then we also learned about camera based practices, like what should be the good resolution, what should be the good camera parameters in order to detect the QR code, what should be the best camera configuration, what should be the best camera torch feature. So for example, if you see, if you are in the darkness and if you open a scanner, the torch automatically gets turned on. So we did optimizations around that as well, like how quickly we can turn on the torch. how
Mhm.
how quickly we can turn on the torch without impacting the camera performance,
Mhm.
because analysis also takes time sometime. On low end devices it actually takes a
Mhm.
lot of time,
Mhm.
because even if we say we can do it on background thread, but on low end devices, for example, it's a dual core device
Mhm.
or quad core device. So
Mhm.
let's say there are only four CPUs, and if you are still doing analysis, then it will still schedule your tasks and
Mhm.
deprioritize your main operations.
Mhm.
So did optimizations around that as well. So after camera best practices, barcode scanning best practices, and this optimizations, this all happened, and this is how we improved the camera performance. And at the end, when we analyzed, it was at as par as GPAs.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
finally, we are able to compare ourselves with GPA at the time.
Mhm. Like, I'm not very well versed with like performance as such, but what would you give like an advice to someone who is not very does not have that much knowledge in how to improve your performance? As you said, animations might play a role. We can do baseline profiling. Maybe reduce some of the stuff from the UI thread and put it on the background thread. Working of the work manager, if that's a thing. What are your suggestions, and what are there any learning resources you can point to?
Yeah, sure. So let's say if for a beginner, I would suggest that you should learn using this tracing mechanisms of Android, like
Mm-hmm.
Systrace or Android Studio Profiler,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously directly jumping to the performance improvement is not a way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So even at while doing these improvements,
Mm-hmm.
we never shipped anything just blindly. Obviously, we always did performance testing, like how much time it is taking now and how much time it was taking earlier. We always check numbers whether they are improving or not.
Mm-hmm.
In the journey, a lot of times happened that we did something and it actually got degrading the performance.
Mm-hmm.
So we never shipped such things. So I would say, first of all, this tracing should be learned by everyone,
Mm-hmm.
so that like tracing is very simple. You should be able to measure.
Mm-hmm.
It can be anything. You can use Perfetto traces. You can do Android method profiling, or
Mm-hmm.
you can do simple logging as well. So, for example, let's say you want to measure the time for a method to execute. Just say system.current time millis as a start time, and whenever you want to stop timer, you just say system.current time millis minus that start time, and you will
Mm-hmm.
know how much time it is taking to execute that method
Process.
or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So go with the logging and then try to improve things. And obviously for improving things, then you can again take help of system tracing.
Mm-hmm.
So system tracing gives you an overview, like with a good UI representation of what XYZ thing is taking how much ABC time.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what is impacting your performance, what is happening on the main thread while this operation is going on, whether you are facing janks on the UI. So
Mm-hmm.
it shows a red line, green line if something is not happening. Then you
Mm-hmm.
can use this memory profiling to check
Mm-hmm.
whether check the usage of your memory, heap memory size
Mm-hmm.
while performing application. So for example, while switching screens of while navigating through the app, let's say your memory is just increasing and never decreasing. It
Mm-hmm.
means something is wrong with application, and let's say then you can fix memory leaks of the application. Obviously as main thread is important,
Mm-hmm.
memory profiling is also important, because otherwise then out of memory errors you might have seen in the crashlytics.
Mm-hmm.
So memory profiling is very easy. So obviously leak canary is there for Android to detect memory leaks.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, then you can just see memory profiling. You can see how much instances of your applications are allocated. Then you can check, okay, let's say there are 50 instance let's say there are 100 instances of one class there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can decide whether that instance should be marked as a singleton, or then like how you should do. So you can take such DI decisions as well by looking
Mm-hmm.
at memory traces and all, memory
Mm-hmm.
profile. And yeah, you can also so the performance has a lot of aspects actually. So we talked about main thread memory, then there are battery performance as well. So let's say if your application is draining a battery a lot, obviously users will uninstall that application.
Mm-hmm.
So there is battery profiler as well. You can
Mm-hmm.
check like whether your work manager is running a lot or not.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise Google nowadays or Android nowadays basically classifies your app based on buckets. If your app is overused, and like if your app is running too much on the background and your user is not using it, then it basically deprioritizes operations for your application, and it's actually hazardous for the product.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we couldn't reach users then.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use battery performance as well, work manager performance as well, whether it's like how much rate, at what rate it is executing, and whether it's executing perfectly or not. Then obviously you should have a logging at performance observability at scale. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, okay, you do benchmarking at local, but what if something goes wrong and you never come to know about it? So you should have traces in the scale
Mm-hmm.
as well. Let's say you can use Firebase dashboard or any third party monitoring tool like Datadog, Elastic, Kibana, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean is, like, for example, at Paytm, we used to measure uh, camera opening time and queue resolution time in the
Mm-hmm.
scale as well. Obviously, that's what helped us to know the behavior of a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So along with the local benchmark, we used to have had a logging at scale. So uh, we used to track performance of camera in release as well, and
Mm-hmm.
used to calculate what is 50th percentile performance, what is 90th percentile performance. That gave us a clear and broad picture of what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in the with the real users.
Mm-hmm.
So the advantage of this is that, let's say I'm working on camera, but I'm not degrading anything, so I know with this release nothing is impacting. But let's say some other module do something
Mm-hmm.
which is impacting the performance of camera, and even we even miss, let's say, it in the PR reviews. So after the release,
Mm-hmm.
we should be come to know about it. Okay, like, the performance is degraded with this release, and there is something which has gone wrong in this process.
Mm-hmm.
So this observability helps here to debug such kind of issues, and so we should have logging as well. And
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned, baseline profiles, and also these things really help, because baseline profile just hot kind of it creates a list of, let's say, classes, methods, etc., which should be warmed up during the startup and all.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically improves the startup time or application. And let's say if you want to improve the performance of your user critical journeys, like, let's say, on the homepage, let's say you have a scrolling list.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, let's say you are using recycler view or compose lazy column.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's say you want to improve the scrolling performance, you
Mm-hmm.
can generate profiles for that scrolling operation as well, so that it will be included in the, like, it that part would be not just in time, it won't be consuming git pool.
Mm-hmm.
So baseline profile will help. But yeah, uh, baseline profile is very straightforward thing, can be easily implemented in any application. But yeah, apart from baseline profiles, these are the things which you mentioned, like, which
Mm-hmm.
are in the hands of engineer,
Mm-hmm.
which can be improved, because baseline profile is just will just improve your git time, the
Mm-hmm.
time it takes to compile your class just in time.
Just in time, yeah.
Yeah, but these other things like memory and all should be taken care by developers.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting stuff. I would love to read about these. I'll try to do my own research with them.
Yeah,
Um,
and Android developers documentation has a really good section for the performance, so I would recommend that resource. It's really nice. They have recently improved it a lot.
mhm,
It literally has everything from debugging, performance issues, UI performance issues,
mhm,
and memory issues, etc. In very deep.
mhm.
So that's all.
Like you have worked with, I think so, Compose as well as XML. That's what I get from your the way you talk. What's your thinking upon, like, have you tried when you're talking about performance? Have you tried it doing on like the Compose and, for example, managing the number of recompositions a screen might have? What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, so I have tried that as well, and currently I'm working on that only.
Mm-hmm.
So compose recompositions is a kind of, obviously, when compose came into the market, there was a new learning curve for the developers to learn, and thinking in
Mm-hmm.
compose is, like, basically, if we are developing something in compose, there is a shift from that XML thing, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking in XML and thinking in compose is very different. There are a lot of compose specific paradigms that we should be using stable classes and all for the recompositions. So compose recompositions happens when we are not handling state with base practices. For example, let's say the very simple recomposition breaker is that let's say you are using any state parameter in compose which is not stable. Let's say by
Like collections,
uh,
maybe.
yeah, it may be collections or anything. Let's say any mutable object. Let's say you have a data class as a state, but it has parameters marked as a var. So compose cannot guarantee that whether this variable will be changed or not. So it marks class as unstable, and whenever any single parameter is changed, it literally recomposes everything, even if the state for that xyz component is not changed. So the stability in compose is very important. That so there are some best practices around this. That let's say you should have an immutable object as a state. So you can have a data class with all vals. There should be no single var, and you can use that. Uh, and after that so what happens that whenever state changes via state flow or something, it performs equality check via dot equals method. And if something is changed, then only it will be like let's say if equals returns false, then only that particular composition will be recomposed, and it will be only changed if that xyz parameter is changed. So for example, your data class has, let's say, three parameters, and these three parameters are being consumed by three different composables. So the parameter which is changed, only that particular composable will be recomposed. So this is how we can save recompositions. Then recently you might have seen that compose has this defer rates. So for example, there are phases of composition life cycle, that layout, drawing, and all that stuff. So if you use that lambda parameter for, let's say you are running animation and you want to change the position of your component after every that animation thing. Let's say you are scrolling something, or let's say you are dragging something. So obviously, when you drag something, it will continuously recompose everything, and all layout phase, drawing phase will, and composition phase will happen in minute milliseconds. So let's say if you want to avoid that, you can just use lambda parameter like draw behind, draw content, and you can just say, you can just give it offset of, let's say, x. Let's say you want to perform horizontal thing, you can say x offset pay provide this value via lambda. So in this case, recompositions will not happen. It will just that whenever that offset will change, it will be directly uh, performed on the layout phase of that particular compose component, and there will be no recomposition. So these are the some best practices. Then the another thing is that for example, in compose, let's say you are performing some operations on the composition scope. Let's say at that you are performing some list operations in at that composable stuff. Then it will degrade the performance of composable, because every time recompositions have happen, that list will be reiterated. So either you should be calculating things in the view model itself with some background dispatcher, or if there is a need of performing these things on composition, then you should use this remember or remember savable, so that it will remember the stuff for you and you don't have to recompute everything. So these things actually help, and that's all. And let's say in the compose, obviously every app has the need of showing a list. Then you use lazy column, lazy rows. Then for the lazy column, there are some requirements for performance, as you should be providing key as a parameter to lazy column, this lazy column builder. So what key does is that so it keeps the track of your items. So for example, let's say if your item is not changed, it will not recompose it. So let's say every item has a unique ID. It may be domain specific ID, let's say user ID or anything. So you should be providing key, and you can actually feel the difference after and before providing the key. You can just see that scrolling gets improved when you actually start providing this key. So these things help.
Yeah,
So this
100%.
there are a lot of things which can be happen in compose, and one of the Another required thing for Compose is that baseline profile. So
Mm-hmm.
Compose obviously is not part of Android SDK. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens that Android SDK is already compiled. I mean, in simple language, we can say that every device has knowledge of Android SDK
Mm-hmm.
uh, with OS itself, because OS has knowledge of Android SDK.
Android. Yep.
But Jetpack Compose is a third party, like is it's like a external pluggable library.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes with your application, it is like that library will be loaded in the runtime,
Mm-hmm.
and then it will be used. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, you say view and button. So these are part of Android SDK, but
Mm-hmm.
Compose is not part of Android SDK. So this classes takes time to compile and
Mm-hmm.
load in the runtime. So
Mm-hmm.
what baseline profiles does is that it will preload your Compose classes as well, because
Mm-hmm.
Jetpack Compose libraries comes with this their own baseline profile. So using
Mm-hmm.
baseline profiles with Compose app will definitely improve the performance. And then at the end, R8 is something which can be helpful further for Jetpack Compose, because R8 then will
Mm-hmm.
eliminate your useless code, or it will clean up and optimize a lot of things. It
Yep.
will
Yep.
also optimize Compose specific stuff, which can then further optimize your performance, because you might have seen that Jetpack Compose feels very different in debug application, and it feels nice in the release app.
Release app. Yep.
So yeah, these are the things, and there are a lot of things actually. Like Compose
Mm-hmm.
performance can take a session altogether.
I agree. Like, I've been trying to migrate some of the XML screens to from
Correct.
XML to Compose, and there's a lot of issue with how Compose recomposition works. I know they are simple screens, but I need to optimize them as much as I can.
Yeah.
And yeah, I studied around like how these are some parameters are stable, how they are unstable. For example, column itself is an column always recomposes, whereas others do not. And these are things I guess everyone who is using Compose needs to keep in mind, because it's a very different thinking from what
Different thing. Correct.
views stand for. And yeah, I enjoy Compose personally, but what do you think, like what would you use for your personal project, or suggest someone who is starting maybe a startup somewhere down the line? Should we use Compose or go for views as such?
Let's say for a beginner, I would always say like you should have a knowledge of Vue, because if you see Compose is on top of Vue, like Compose is not
Yes,
rocket
yes.
science.
Mm-hmm.
At the be like very low level, it makes use of Vue APIs only.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the knowledge of Vue will be always beneficial, because this is the core thing, and that will never go away. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have to start with XML, then slowly go with Compose.
Mm-hmm.
And because even at the current state, Compose is still not that stable in terms of performance and all stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens that, obviously, let's say you want to build applications, I would always say analyze whether your application can be built in Compose with stability and with performant use cases or not. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
you are building a application which is very simple application, and you want to check go to market strategy, and you are building MVP. You can do it
Mm-hmm.
very fast in Compose.
Mm-hmm.
But before that as well, you should evaluate whether Compose can fulfill your all requirements or not. Because let's say at Paytm earlier, we started Compose adoption as soon as Compose went stable, and there was a screen. So we were also working on chat screen of the Compose,
Mm-hmm.
and in chat there was a use case of you can directly send GIF images or any web images directly
Mm-hmm.
from keyboard. So let's say you might be aware that Gboard has that feature that you can
Mm-hmm.
search for GIFs
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
the Gboard, and you can directly insert it into any application like WhatsApp,
Mm-hmm.
Telegram, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a similar feature at Paytm.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started using this text field of Compose,
Mm-hmm.
we saw that it's not it still not supports that feature. This
Mm-hmm.
feature was recently, I think, launched in Compose 1.6 or 5. I forgot that,
Mm-hmm.
but recently,
Mm-hmm.
like this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw that this is not supporting. So I would say, if something is hampering your product, obviously framework should not take over.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, product is important and user experience is important.
Mm-hmm.
So always evaluate whether Compose can fulfill your needs and requirements or not, and then only
Mm-hmm.
pick it. Otherwise, do not take it. Then we also saw that on the very low end devices, Compose performance with lists is not that good.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped migrating to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the current state, even lazy column is not that as performant as recycler view is, because recycler view is very kind of matured stuff. It came
Mm-hmm.
very long. It has its own journey. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure Compose will be definitely uh, improve it as a time. But at the moment, if I have to do something, let's say I'm building a product
Mm-hmm.
which can be used by any kind of user. Obviously, it's India, and you know that there can be there are devices ranging from 5,000 to 2 lakhs
2 lakhs,
right now.
yeah. Yeah.
So we also have to care for this 5,000 rupee
User
device.
base as well.
So if something is that, and let's say Compose is preventing us from providing that good experience, then
Mm-hmm.
we should not use it. So these are some takeaways that we should be doing, and it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the use case.
Mm-hmm.
If it's very simple and it can run on the low end devices as well, always pick Compose because it's the future, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously Google will definitely improve the performance of it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if it is not, then I would say you can just skip it and you can keep using XML stuff. And the best part of Compose is that it's interoperable.
Mm-hmm.
You can plug your Compose anytime inside XML, or you can plug your XML inside Compose.
Compose, yeah.
So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. There's a lot of learning curve when it comes to Compose and XML as well, because I personally enjoy Compose and I have been using Compose a lot more as compared to XML. But when I got started with Geeks for Geeks, they were using XML, and I got to know a lot of things around XML and stuff. Um, yeah, personal projects, I think Compose is really great if you want to experiment around with it and learn along the way. Maybe release your own app. Make sure that you can
Correct.
use Compose if you want to. But in the production level app that have more than million downloads, I would again suggest that maybe you can migrate sign up screens which do not have a lot of workflow or user step in, those to Compose, and then try to see if the use case fits, then try to migrate all of those screens to Compose. If not, I guess XML is the way, and until then XML will be the thing. That's what my thinking is. Like
Okay.
previously I've worked with Flutter as well. Have you used these multi-platform language, like not KMP as such, but I'm talking about Flutter, React Native?
Yeah, I have tried Flutter. I haven't tried React Native, but I have tried Flutter
Mm-hmm.
till the time I was in college. So I
Mm-hmm.
have tried that as well. That's also a good tool for, let's say, launching MVP with single
Mm-hmm.
code base.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it also has some pitfalls, like when it should be used and when it should not.
Mm-hmm. Like I've seen that you talked about it extensively around performance as such. Uh, like I don't know, I haven't seen Flutter as such, and like Flutter developers as such talking about performance in a very deep end way as Android developers do. And any product that is going on a very large scale, over like 1 million, 5 million downloads, I think so tend to go towards native. But what's your thinking? What do you think? Can, like, for example, Zero the app Kite is
Yeah,
on
good
Flutter.
examples.
I don't know. It's my personal thing, but I practically hate that app. So I rather use Grow as compared to Flutter apps. So what's your thinking behind Flutter as such?
Yeah, so it also depends on the use case of the application. So what kind of application you are developing? Let's say you are developing an application which it interacts a lot with, let's say, hardware and all stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So in such applications, with such applications, actually, the cross-platform frameworks will definitely will not be performing better,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens that there is this native Android layer. On top of that, there is this Java
Bridge. Yeah.
layer, and on top of that, this cross-platform stuff comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you have to do something like this, you actually need to use native APIs only, right? Like you have
Mm-hmm.
to build bridges. Let's say you
Mm-hmm.
want to use camera and barcode scanning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You will need to write that Android specific stuff in Kotlin or Java, and iOS specific stuff in Swift or Objective C.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, native will be always there. And when you develop apps like this, then your performance of native only application versus cross platform differs a lot. So let's say I'm developing this camera stuff, then camera in, let's say, Paytm camera in like native, and Paytm camera, let's say, in Flutter. So there will be a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Resource utilization will be the more in Flutter, because it has its own world of VM, let's say, I do not have that much context of Flutter, let's say, I
Mm-hmm.
would say VM. Flutter will have its own virtual machine, own memory space, own pointers and all to
Mm-hmm.
do stuff. So it will basically degrade the performance. But let's say you have a simple application which is just doing CRUD operations. It's you
Mm-hmm.
are seeing data, you are reading data, you are just uh, consuming data, and you are just manipulating data. I would
Mm-hmm.
say you can use Flutter for MVP,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't cause much performance issues. It will be usable on low end devices as well. It will be good on high end devices as well. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's say the one disadvantage of Flutter is that you cannot see incorporate native OS look and feel, right? This
Mm-hmm.
argument on the internet mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say
Agree.
iOS needs separate needs its own
UI.
UX, and Android. Let's say WhatsApp has different UX on Android and different
Mm-hmm.
UX in iOS. So
Mm-hmm.
such things won't be possible. And you might have even heard that app size is not as
Mm-hmm.
like Flutter actually takes a lot
Lenient.
of yeah, app size. So app size is also issue. And in India, actually, even if nowadays like 128 GB, 256 GB is very common, but still there are a lot of users that uninstalls your application when they are not able to install games.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Correct. Let's
100%.
say someone is installing, let's say, a battleground PUBG or anything. They
Mm-hmm.
uninstall, and if there are space issues, they literally uninstall any application for the
Mm-hmm.
space issue. So space is still issue in the India. I would say in future it would be not that much, but yeah, at the moment it's still, and
Mm-hmm.
Flutter then it makes things worse. So
Mm-hmm.
depends on use case. You might even remember that when GPay came with Flutter, the
Mm-hmm.
performance of GPay with native versus GPay Flutter was very different.
Mm-hmm.
So GPay actually degraded performance after incorporating with Flutter. So
Mm-hmm.
that was also thing because GPay is UPay application, and it interacts with camera and all stuff,
Mm-hmm.
native stuff a lot.
Right.
Zerodha
Yeah.
I haven't used, so cannot comment on that. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you might even know the story of let's say Swiggy or Book My Show. So
No,
they
I
were
don't know that.
cross-platform applications, and they transitioned into native and basically solved their performance issues.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, what I have seen, obviously, I'm not that much experienced person, but what I have seen in the industry is that for the MVP, people always go with Flutter or React Native stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
later on some point they have always migrated to native
Mm-hmm.
because they realize when obviously the millions of users are there,
Mm-hmm.
they understand that okay performance and all stuff, and then they really migrated. So Book My Show migrated their code to native in COVID because obviously in COVID their business was not going so well. So they
Mm-hmm.
did this as a maintenance stuff, and I read a blog that they actually improved a lot of performance while
Mm-hmm.
going through this migration. They were in
Mm-hmm.
React Native, and Swiggy did same as well.
Mm-hmm. I
So yeah,
guess.
I
Yeah,
would
I
say depends on use case only.
yeah, I have heard about like Swiggy has gone. I think so. They're using KMP as such, and multi again Kotlin multi-platform native things will always stand out as compared to what Flutter is there. And I think when Google decided to push Flutter when it was a thing, um, they you were using it for every Google app, I think,
Yeah.
and that was a problem for them as well. And then they just started pushing KMP, so that is a good thing. Other than that, I've used Flutter. I think so. Most of the service-based companies still use Flutter,
Yeah.
and it's because they can deliver products
Both
as fast
sides.
as they can. And natively building products require a lot of, first of all, dedication and a good team to build them separately when it comes to iOS and Android. So yeah, if you I think so. I've like seen the Notions podcast as well on the pragmatic engineer. They were using Ionic, I think,
Yeah.
capacitor in Ionic, something like that, and they transitioned to Kotlin and the Swift UI and Compose. So again, performance issues. So Yeah, I think there's somewhere in the future. I have seen that if your MVP is having a lot of downloads, sure enough, you need to transfer somewhere down the line into native platforms. That's what my thinking
Correct.
is.
Yeah, I mean, everything has pros and cons, and the most good pro of Flutter is that like it just quickly lets you develop your MVPs and try out on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
initial
hundred
customer.
percent.
So let's say, let's say in future I come up with a startup idea and I have to, let's say, build a product fast. Even
Mm-hmm.
maybe I will try Flutter first,
Mm-hmm.
and if it gets succeeded, then I can maybe transition into this stuff
Mm-hmm.
native later. But I think, yeah, now Kotlin multi-platform will definitely change the thinking, I would say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because Kotlin multi-platform has now come with Compose multi-platform as well,
Mm-hmm.
where you can have a common UI as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the flexibility KMP giving is that that's awesome. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can decide whether you want common UI or common shared code only.
Mm-hmm.
If you have common shared code, then you can maintain your OS specific look and feel with common logic and separate individual UI logics per
Yeah,
platform, and
yeah.
that too without constraints of cross platform like thing, because KMP is not creating that intermediate layer for you. It is
Mm-hmm.
doing everything natively. Like
Natively.
whenever compiling for Android, it is generating JVM bytecode for you, Delphi bytecode for you, and for iOS, it is producing Swift compatible code for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think in future KMP will definitely change the thinking, because nowadays
Yeah.
KMP is used a lot. I think Geo Cinema was using KMP for
Mm-hmm.
one of their analytics SDK.
Mm-hmm. I
So yeah.
think, yeah, I think there's a thing around bank applications as well. I've seen that, I don't know how banks are investing into their applications, but I've seen that most of these applications are native, but they suffer a lot. I don't know why they are not investing as such in native applications. For example, I like HDFC applications. Um, Somehow they feel native. I do not know if they're native or not. They feel native, but they suffer a lot. And I think so. There's a trend here that people do not care as much of performance when it comes to utility apps. But somewhere down the line, what will happen is a user will start to and migrate from one app to a better app, and then they need, to push native performances onto their products. That's what my thinking is. Um, Other than that, have you tried using developing websites with KMP, or no? Sorry, yeah, KMP.
No, haven't tried. Okay, one thing I have tried is that recently I built a project with Gemini SDK.
Mm-hmm.
So I ported Gemini SDK by Google to Kotlin multi-platform, and I tried it on web as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a simple project, so I tried KMP with Compose multi-platform on Wasm, WebAssembly.
Yeah, yeah,
So I tried that, but I haven't tried this much Kotlin J for JavaScript yet.
JavaScript. Yeah, I've tried Kotlin with Cobweb as such, which is, if you've heard about Cobweb. Um, I've tried Cobweb. It seems super interesting. It seems like the learning curve is kind of weird because there's no such function repeating in like Android as such as in like Cobweb. But a lot of, if you have a lot of a little knowledge around web, I think so Compose will be much easier to learn. But again, there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into Cobweb. And yeah, I think so it's very early to judge that thing, but I
Yeah,
enjoyed it when I tried it. So that's what my thinking is.
yeah,
uh, Other than that, I kind of want to go on a tangent here. I actually saw your post on Twitter. I guess it wasn't Twitter, maybe you bought your house somewhere.
yeah.
uh, yeah, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
um what's your, like, I've seen that it's very tough to support, like, what you bring your own house is very big investment itself. How do you manage your investments when you comes to personal finances? I'm talking in a way that, like, um, maybe people who have just joined into companies, they have no idea what to do with this money, and they're not very financially aware. What would you
Yeah.
suggest to them to get to the position where you are now? Maybe buy your own house, or maybe yeah, do something with that money in the future.
Yeah, correct. Like, I mean, this is the failure of our education system, that we we do not even learn good things in the college, and we do not even learn about finance things. But yeah,
Yeah.
the best thing is that we can still learn things on our own. And recently, like, I mean, when I started doing this internship and all, from that time on itself, I started doing investments, mostly investments around equity only.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Obviously, I do not do trading because I can't focus that much
Yeah.
every day, every hour, every minute.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I personally, like, obviously, not promoting anything, but I found this small case application very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So small case lets you buy stocks as a
Mm-hmm.
SIP.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can decide like when you want to do SIP, weekly, monthly.
Mm-hmm.
They provide you a good bucket, a list of buckets of stocks, and lets you buy directly into your demat account. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
I'm using Grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I do SIP of small case in Grow. Then half of the investments are mutual fund investments for me. Some
Mm-hmm.
index funds, then some green energy funds.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this digital
Gold.
tech fund and tech funds and all.
Okay.
So diversified portfolio, and it has helped me a lot. Got a good return so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if last from few months, like, stability is not that much, like seeing negatives, positive. But yeah, so far I have, in the 3 years, I can see like 55% returns over stocks and mutual funds. So
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend that you can look at these things, like, investment is really necessary,
Mm-hmm.
because inflation
100%.
is growing a lot in India. And if you
Mm-hmm.
are not if let's say you earn 100 rupees now,
Mm-hmm.
after 1 year that 100 rupees will have a no, will no, will not have value as it has now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You should be, increasing value for money.
Mm-hmm.
So investment is the only way. And because inflation is, let's say, growing of on the rate of, I think, 7%, 7.5 something.
Mm-hmm. I think
So
it's even more than that. It's like depending upon like how our
yeah,
lifestyle choices is. Because we tend to be alone and in a different part of the cities, we tend to make
correct,
choices to make ourselves happy, go out with friends and stuff. So our lifestyle
correct, correct.
inflation is much more than just 7%.
Yes,
So
agree. So yeah, investment is definitely a good thing, and it's a good habit actually, because it then you should clearly analyze, like, uh, out of your this 100% earning,
mm,
how much percent you should invest, so that you
mm,
can use it in the future.
mm,
Uh, in that as well, there are aspects like use I mean, long term investment and short term investment.
mm,
Let's say you are sure that you can invest in long term. Long term is always best. I only believe in long term. I do not
mm,
believe in short term,
mm,
personally. But yeah, let's say you want to invest for short term as well, then also this will be good.
mm,
Then you can decide like how much percent of your salary should go into this stuff, then how much you should spend and how much you should keep in the bank.
mm,
We should keep some amount in bank as well, because we don't know what can
mm,
happen, what emergency you can come.
mm,
And if there is an emergency, then you cannot just extract that money out of mutual funds and all within a day.
of
It
course.
takes at least 2 days, I think. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if there are holidays, then it can even take more days. So
Mm,
you should have an emergency fund in your bank, and apart from that, everything should go.
mm,
And let's say you are not sure about risk,
mm,
then there are safe options as well. Like, you can increase your EPF contribution,
mm,
employee provident fund. It gives, I think, returns up to 8% annually, compounding interest.
mm,
And let's say there are PPFs as well.
mm,
It gives you 7% returns.
mm.
FD, I would say, it doesn't even beat this inflation.
Yeah, market
So
rate. Yeah.
yeah, won't even recommend that. But yeah, if you are still I mean, not sure, then at the end you should do FD only. If
Mm,
But yeah, I believe in this market. So
mm,
most of 90% of my money goes into equity.
mm. What's your division of your salary, if I can ask? Like, how do you divide your salary in like percentages? Like, how much is your guilt-free spending? How much you spend on your like, okay, without any guilt? How much do you actually save in your bank account? How much goes into investments? What's your percentage division?
Sure. So at Paytm, I was doing like I had permanent work from home. So my
Mm-hmm.
spendings were literally apart from monthly ration and all stuff.
Yeah.
I used to live in my hometown, which is Jalgaon, Maharashtra.
Mm-hmm.
Rates are not as much as high as Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi,
Mm.
Mumbai, etc.
Yeah.
So I used to like invest 80% of my salary
Mm.
monthly
Super interesting.
because yeah,
Yeah.
like there was like even after that I was able to spend on my utilities. Like I have obviously we take people are fond of basically gadgets and all. I used to
Yeah. Yeah.
spend a lot and still I was able to invest. But now recently I have switched from Paytm. I work in Dilveroo now, which is
Mm.
the Hyderabad based.
Mm.
It's a hybrid because obviously work from home is somehow ending in India, so
Mm.
I had to because and so obviously Hyderabad is as costly as Bangalore,
Yeah.
and so currently my 60% of salary goes into investment only.
Mm-hmm.
So
Still, 60% is a lot of money because most people can't even do 20%. And like 60, how do you spend in like how much is your like I'm not asking numbers, but I'm asking like what percentage goes into your rent and other things because that's the main um expenditure for anyone who is living outside of their house.
it's just 10-20%. Like I would say 30% of salary goes into spending like everyday commute and all, food, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
rent, including flights to home and all. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Nice. If you have like 60% is a lot of dedication towards investments. Mm, yeah,
Yeah, I
nice.
mean, in the COVID time, I learned the importance of compounding because so what I do is like even if in between, let's say I see that there is this amount in my bank which is
Mm-hmm.
not even used, I do lump sum investments right away
Mm-hmm.
in between as well
Mm-hmm.
because what I think is like if I have need of money, I can extract it. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
I have to purchase something,
Mm-hmm.
I will extract it, and this has helped me in my construction, house construction as well.
Mm-hmm. Like
So
yeah, when you look at investments as such, what's your how do you point to the sources of like as you said you were going into equities? Can I ask how many stocks do you have and how much do how many stocks do you manage?
I think there are around. Obviously, I myself never like buy any stocks. As I said, I buy it via small case, which suggests me stocks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And at the moment, I can see I have 102 holdings
Mm-hmm.
in my portfolio so far.
That might be just a bucket of like all weather season
Correct, correct,
investing
correct.
kind of thing.
So yeah, I have a good returns of let's say 45% at this moment in stocks,
Mm-hmm.
and it is like if you go through the list, you will also see negatives, you will see positives.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this balancing things helps. Some stocks has given me 102% returns, 109% returns,
Mm-hmm.
even 180% returns.
Mm-hmm.
Some stocks are giving me minus 15% returns, minus 20% returns. So this balance actually helps.
Mm-hmm.
So the one key mantra is like diversification is very important because
100%. Yeah.
it reduces the risks. If some so in the market, what happens generally that if market crashes, let's say American market is not going so well, or
Mm.
let's say wars are going on, the stock
Mhm.
prices decreases and gold prices increases,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you should have investments in gold as well.
Mhm.
You can buy SGBs or gold Bs, anything.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So this situation oriented steps can be taken at the runtime. Let's say you see that market is crashed, you
Mhm.
can then buy gold Bs at the time, or physical gold, like that is also possible.
Mhm. Like if you were to say or maybe suggest someone who has, well, let's just say that someone has just started working into the industry, they might not have exactly a very high salary. They might even be working in maybe Bangalore, Hyderabad, where spending is a lot. I don't think so. They will be saving up to 60%, because 60% is a lot of money. Let's just say
Mhm.
they are saving up to 10, 20%, 10% maybe. Um, how would you suggest to someone to get started in investments? What should they even look at? What should they even study? What do you think?
Then simple thing is that I would suggest, which I started myself. I would just
Mm-hmm.
say start with any mutual fund. I would say good mutual fund will be index fund. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
which goes with Nifty 50 index fund,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
should watch like how you perform in 1 or 2 years. Then you will get confidence, because initially when I started with mutual funds only.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came to know that okay, mutual funds are good, but stocks are beneficial as well, because they give you time to time
Higher
dividends
returns.
as
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
returns, direct returns and direct profit.
Mm-hmm.
So mutual funds is a good way to start, because then you don't have to manage, because mutual fund managers are doing work for you.
Yeah,
Obviously, they are not doing it for free. They
yeah.
take profit out of our money, but they give profit to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just open use any application, use Zerodha, Grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are a lot of broking applications in India,
Mm-hmm.
and go with any index fund or technology fund or any good fund,
Mm-hmm.
and just start on it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's
Right.
say what I do right now is that let's say in the last budget, I see there are a lot of good opportunities coming from for green energy like
Mm-hmm.
EVs and all. I
Mm-hmm.
think that will increase in the future. So started investments in the stocks in small case that associated with EV, do
Mm-hmm.
electric stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or mutual funds that invest in the companies which are related to green energy, electric vehicles, or the companies which care a lot about nature and all stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
so these are actually giving good returns as well, because they are going well and government is supporting. So this budget, a lot of things depends on this annual budget as well.
Mm-hmm. I
You
agree.
will get this idea by time, but yeah, for starting, mutual funds is a good way to go, which I have personally felt. Even I have recommended it to some of my friends when they started, and after some years, they also grown so well, and they have started doing on their, they have started managing it on their own. So
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that this has helped my friends as well. So I can definitely recommend that with confidence.
Mm-hmm. Agree. But there's a thing. Here's the thing. Like, if somebody expects to have huge returns of revenue in like mutual funds, because I've seen no millionaire being made from mutual funds. The only thing you have to do is increase your income.
Yeah,
So, the idea behind mutual fund and the idea behind stocks and equities is just to beat the inflation and make sure that your income that you're generating is good enough in the future. That's what investments are for. Other than that, my perspective on like starting investing is that even if you do not have a lot of money, even if you do not earn a lot of money, just start out of with small amount, because that will eventually develop a habit of investment. Because if you do not start it right now, development of the habit will take a lot of time, and that
correct.
will eventually hamper your growth. So yeah, that's my thinking is
Yeah,
um
I mean, you can even start from 1,000 rupee or 2,000 rupee, 5,000 rupee
100%,
per month.
100%,
So
100%.
I think that should be easily possible for anyone. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the tech industry, like if that's not possible, then I think there is some problem in habits of that person.
Mm-hmm. It might be just a skill issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, these were all the questions from my side. If you have any advice or if you have any suggestion before parting away, that'd be great.
Yeah, it was definitely good. Good experience talking to you, and
Mm-hmm.
a nice exchange of all the tech stuff and then personal finance stuff. It was a nice discussing, and didn't realize that like it so
It's
much
been
time.
around 1 hour
Yeah,
17 minutes for now.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, again, thank you for joining me, and yeah, And it was amazing discussing all of this stuff with you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And if you did, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.